The film begins by showing an empty room when suddenly a man falls from the ceiling, desperate. He finds a door and runs to it. When he pulls a gear, the walls of the room begin to move, cornering him. In panic, he rummages through the objects in the room until he finds a paper with a message instructing him to follow the light toward greener pastures. Then, he notices an illuminated book on the shelf. When he reads its contents, he finds the message that by witnessing another person's death, he would unravel the mystery of time. Then he begins looking for a clock, but finds none. Next, he observes the paintings in the room, which portray people being killed, and interprets the position of the elements in each painting as if they were the hands of a clock, discovering a time. Convinced, he runs to the door and adjusts its gears to enter the code. However, the room continues closing in, while objects begin to fall. Even entering the combination, the door remains locked. Shortly afterward, the walls close completely, crushing him inside the room. Then, the scene advances a few days, and we meet Zoe, a brilliant but shy physics student. After class, her professor calls her to talk, informs her that he read her work on the quantum Zeno effect, and advises her to express herself more, because the world is not a scientific experiment, and not all variables can be controlled. Zoe says that she will try to improve, and the professor challenges her to do something that scares her during the holiday. Then, we meet Jason, a successful investment advisor, who receives from a client, Mr. Ackerman, an invitation to spend the weekend in Tahiti. Jason accepts and shortly afterward receives a package sent by Ackerman. When he opens it, he finds a black cube accompanied by the message that he always thinks outside the box. Since he cannot open it, he sets the object aside, commenting that rich people are strange and that money does not buy happiness. We also meet Ben, a young grocery store employee who faces family problems and struggles with alcoholism. He asks his boss, Gary, for a promotion to work at the register, explaining that he needed to earn more money to move out of his mother's house because living with her was becoming increasingly difficult. Gary shows that he understands his situation, but refuses the request, stating that it would be bad for business to put him in that role. Disappointed, Ben accepts the decision and keeps working. Meanwhile, Zoe talks with her roommate, Allison, who invites her to spend Thanksgiving dinner with her family. Zoe thanks her for the invitation, but admits that large family gatherings are not her style. Instead, she comments that she intends to use the holiday to study advanced mathematics, mentioning the possibility that Euler's idea about a perfect box may not be able to exist. Allison is impressed, although she understands almost nothing of the explanation, and says goodbye. Alone in the room, Zoe hears a noise coming from the mirror and notices that it begins to shake. When she approaches, the environment around her transforms, while echoes of crying and screams take over the place. She wakes up in her bed and realizes that it was all only a nightmare. Allison asks if she is okay. Zoe confirms that she is, and her roommate informs her that she is already leaving. When she opens the door, Allison finds a box left outside the room and comments that it had been sent by Zoe's professor. When she opens it, Zoe finds a message encouraging her to open new doors. Inside the box is the same black cube that Jason had received. Ben, after finishing his shift, also finds an identical cube, accompanied by a message offering him a chance to escape. Later, Jason turns his attention back to the object. Meanwhile, Jason, Zoe, and Ben try to open their cubes. Little by little, the object comes apart, revealing an invitation to Minos escape rooms, where the first participant to escape its immersive rooms would receive a prize of $10,000. The message also displays the website for registration. On the appointed day, Ben arrives at the place and observes the building from outside. Shortly afterward, Amanda, another guest for the game, approaches and asks Ben if that was the Minos building. He replies that he believes so, and she enters the building. Inside, she is received by a receptionist, who asks for her identity document and cell phone before handing her an identification badge. As she heads to the elevator, she finds the employee's behavior strange, but enters anyway. Another participant, Danny, a young man obsessed with video games, arrives at the elevator and shows Amanda his second cell phone, commenting that he considers waiting rooms very boring. When they reach the third floor, Amanda enters the waiting room and finds the other participants, including Jason, Zoe, and Mike. She tries to talk to the receptionist through a glass panel, but the woman only asks her to sit down and wait until someone arrives. Amanda sits on the sofa and tries to talk to Zoe, saying that she seems familiar to her. However, very shy, Zoe replies that she believes she does not know her. Mike comments that, from what he saw on the website, those games promise to be quite fun. Danny explains that it would be like a video game in real life. Jason asks if he has ever participated in similar experiences, and Danny replies that he has already completed 93 escape rooms. Mike comments that his nephew is also passionate about escape rooms, was the one who signed him up for the competition, and that the $10,000 of the prize would be very welcome. He adds that he read that this was considered one of the best rooms in the country and asks Danny what the rules of the game were. Danny explains that the goal was to escape before time ran out, and that, if they did not succeed, someone would enter the room to reveal the clues they missed. Zoe asks when the game would begin, and Danny replies that they were still waiting for the arrival of the game master, responsible for presenting the story and leading them to the escape room. While they wait, Ben comments that he is going to smoke a cigarette, but when he tries to open the door, the handle comes off in his hand. Mike goes to examine it, and Danny suggests that perhaps they were already inside the game. Observing the socket of the handle, he notices a mechanism similar to the temperature selector of an oven, where it would be possible to enter a code. Then, he instructs everyone to search the room for objects hiding riddles or numerical combinations. The group begins searching the environment until Zoe finds a mug with the phrase that they had a choice, which arouses her suspicion. Amanda examines the magazines on the table and realizes that they are all addressed to Dr. Wooton Yu. Meanwhile, Mike finds a screwdriver hidden inside a book, and Amanda suggests that they look for screws. However, Zoe observes the title Fahrenheit 451 and realizes that the door code was hidden there. As soon as she enters the combination, everyone hears a noise, while red lights turn on in the ceiling. Shortly afterward, they realize that the room temperature begins to rise rapidly. Amanda asks Zoe to turn off the mechanism, but she discovers that the knob can no longer be turned. Irritated, Amanda asks Zoe not to touch anything else, and asks Danny what they should do. He replies that normally, at that moment it would be possible to request a hint. Amanda tries to talk to the receptionist again, but she only repeats the same words. This time, Zoe notices that her voice sounds artificial, almost robotic. Jason observes a snow globe with a small boat and notices a hidden lock behind it, responsible for opening the window. Danny comments that they need to find a small key, but Ben suggests breaking the glass with the fire extinguisher. When he picks it up, he discovers that it is plastic and throws it on the floor. At that moment, another boom echoes through the room, while the heat increases even more. Upon observing the fallen extinguisher, Zoe realizes that there is a small key hidden inside it. She alerts the others, but Jason dismisses her discovery because of the mistake made earlier. Mike, on the other hand, decides to trust her, believing that it could be the key they needed. Zoe inserts it into the lock and manages to open the window, revealing a mannequin holding a telephone that continuously repeats a robotic message. The phone rings and Jason answers. On the other end of the line, a recording orders everyone to strictly follow the displayed rules. As soon as he puts the receiver back on the hook, another mechanism is triggered. The red lights become more intense, the windows close completely, and the temperature rises unbearably, driving Amanda into despair. Trying to help her, Zoe offers her water and notices Amanda has scars on her back. Shortly afterward, Zoe finds a small button on the table and presses it. A hidden passage behind a painting partially opens, but closes again when she releases it. The others look for other buttons and by pressing them simultaneously, manage to fully open the secret passage. Jason offers to enter first and finds an exit blocked by a grate. He asks Mike for the screwdriver found earlier, removes the grate, and calls the rest of the group. Danny suggests that Amanda go first, because she is in the worst condition. At that moment, they realize that there will not be enough people to keep all the buttons pressed. Zoe then fills a glass with water and places it on one of the buttons, keeping it activated. Immediately after, the group hears Amanda's screams coming from the other side of the passage, and the guys ask Zoe to go help her while they fill more glasses for the remaining buttons. Amanda panics because of her traumas from the Iraq War, but Zoe manages to calm her down and helps her move forward. Meanwhile, Ben goes to fill the last glass, but the water in the fountain runs out. Danny blames him because Amanda drank part of the water. At that moment, flames appear on the ceiling. Ben remembers that he still has a bottle of his drink in his pocket and completes the last glass with the liquid, managing to keep the button pressed. The passage remains open, and everyone escapes shortly before the room is taken over by flames. On the other side, they come out through a fireplace and are impressed by the intensity of the fire. Danny insists that everything is part of the experience, but Amanda says that she wants to quit and declares this in front of the room's camera. Since nothing happens, she asks for Danny's cell phone to call the police, but the device has no signal. Jason observes the exit door and realizes that it requires a 7-letter word. While they search for clues, Mike finds an inscription saying that someone would go down in history. The group tries to interpret the phrase, but Ben observes stuffed reindeer heads on the wall and remembers a car accident he had with friends while they were singing a song about the red-nosed reindeer Rudolph, who would go down in history. Convinced that this was the answer, he states that the password is Rudolph. Jason enters the word, and the door opens. When they leave the house, they all find a vast frozen landscape. Danny walks ahead across the ice floor until he bumps into the wall that limits the artificial room. When he falls, a loud sound of ice cracking scares the group, but he believes that everything is part of the attraction's effects. At that moment, hidden ducts begin releasing blasts of extremely cold air, forcing everyone to move closer together to preserve body heat. Soon after, the doors of the previous room close, trapping them again. While they search for new clues, Jason finds another door that needs a key to be opened. Amanda finds a coat and concludes that the game intends to make them compete for limited resources among themselves. Even so, she decides to share the piece with the group, handing it first to Zoe, who appears to suffer more from the cold. Ben tries to light a cigarette and, while walking, ends up falling into a hidden hole in the ice where there is freezing water. Danny suggests that perhaps there is some clue down there. Then Mike appears carrying a fishing rod found attached to a tree and comments that it may be useful, although everyone doubts it is worth waiting for a possible clue. At that moment, Zoe notices a compass in the coat pocket. She decides to follow the direction indicated by the instrument and discovers that north points toward a polar bear statue among the trees. When she puts her hand inside the animal's mouth, she finds a magnet and gets the idea to attach it to the end of the fishing line to recover the object hidden under the ice. Trembling from the cold, Jason says that it is now his turn to use the coat, and Zoe hands it over. Shortly afterward, Mike feels that he has hooked something and, after much effort, pulls from the water a large block of ice with a key trapped inside it. The group tries to break the ice against a tree, but cannot. Jason then suggests using Ben's lighter. Annoyed, Ben hands over the object, throwing it on the ground. Danny offers to pick it up, but when he returns, the ice breaks beneath his feet, causing him to fall into an enormous hole. Everyone runs to help him, but Danny reappears trapped under the layer of ice, being dragged by the current. Despite the rescue attempts, he ends up drowning. At that moment, everyone realizes that this is not part of a game. Mike asks Ben how it all happened, and Ben explains that he was reckless by throwing the lighter, but that he never imagined the ice would give way. Jason, however, observes that Danny fell exactly where Ben had thrown the lighter. From then on, everyone begins to distrust Ben, raising the hypothesis that he is the game master. Trying to defend himself, Ben states that he is precisely the least suspicious of the group because he works in a simple grocery store, while the others have much more unusual profiles. Jason interrupts the discussion, stating that getting the key was the priority. The group then decides to melt the block of ice with the heat of their own hands. While they wait, Jason recalls a traumatic episode from his past, when he faced extreme cold to survive. After some time, the ice finally melts. Jason removes the key, opens the door, and a new passage is revealed. Everyone runs toward the exit while the ice floor begins to break beneath their feet. But fortunately, they manage to escape in time. When they arrive at the next room, they find a casino completely upside down. Jason notices that the exit door has no handle and concludes that they will need to find it. Mike notices that the 8-ball is missing from the pool table, and, while examining the cue rack, part of the floor gives way beneath his feet, but Ben manages to pull him back at the last instant. The group takes refuge in a safe area and begins avoiding the damaged parts of the floor. Amanda climbs the shelves and finds a hidden safe, but no combination works. Meanwhile, Zoe crosses the damaged area to reach a puzzle. After assembling it, the image reveals 2 stripes and a circle in the center. Mike believes that it represents the numbering of the pool balls and suggests using that information as the safe's password, but the attempt fails. Suddenly, the shelf where part of the group is supported begins to give way. Zoe tries to escape. Jason tries to help her, but she falls, hits her head, and relives the memory of her mother's death in a plane crash. Upon regaining consciousness, she realizes that the entire room is inverted and concludes that the safe code should also be entered backward. Amanda makes a new attempt, and the safe finally opens, revealing the 8-ball, which functions as the door handle. Everyone manages to reach the same safe platform except Amanda, who remains isolated. With no alternative, she jumps and manages to cling to the pool table attached to the ceiling. While trying to cross to the others, the 8-ball slips out of her pocket. Before it falls into the hole, Amanda manages to recover it and pass it to Jason. At the same instant, the floor gives way completely. Amanda still manages to grab the telephone hanging from the ceiling, but exhausted and without the strength to continue, she falls and dies from the fall. Deeply shaken, especially Zoe, the survivors are forced to move on to the next room. The new environment resembles a hospital room. Soon the group realizes that each bed has one of their names on it. Faced with the situation, they begin to share the tragedies that marked their lives. Zoe says that she was traveling by plane with her mother over Vietnam when the aircraft crashed in the middle of the jungle. She survived, but the rescue took a week to find her. Jason reports that he was on a boat with a friend when a huge wave overturned the vessel, leaving the two adrift in a freezing ocean with only one coat to share. As the hours passed, his friend began to act aggressively and confused, symptoms that Jason later discovered were caused by hypothermia. On the second day, believing he had seen something, the friend set off alone into the sea, but around them there was only ocean. On the third day, Jason was rescued by the Coast Guard. Ben says that he was the first among his friends to buy a car, and during the winter holidays, went out to celebrate with them. Everyone was drunk when they suffered a serious accident. Mike reveals that he worked in a mine alongside his brother, Cal. One day, a collapse left them trapped underground. Mike managed to survive, but Cal died before the rescue arrived. At that moment, everyone realizes that whoever organized that game knew extremely specific details of their lives, including the coat shared by Jason and his friend, and even the song Ben was singing before the accident. Zoe concludes that they are all statistical improbabilities, survivors of practically impossible situations, and that the goal of those responsible for the game is to discover who will be the survivor among the survivors. Suddenly, the television in the room turns on automatically, and a voice informs them that they need to reach their extremes because they have only 5 minutes to make their choice. The group returns to searching for clues. Mike finds some X-ray plates and places them against the light to analyze them. At first, they believe that they represent numbers, but Ben realizes that, in truth, they are signs of sign language, forming the letters E, C, and G. At that moment, Zoe begins to destroy all the cameras spread throughout the room. She explains that, just as in the quantum Zeno effect, in which particles remain unchanged while they are being observed, they will also remain trapped in that situation, as long as they are being monitored. Then, she asks everyone to look for another exit. Meanwhile, Jason realizes that a poisonous gas will begin to be released in the room. Soon after, he finds an electrocardiogram device and believes that it is connected to the challenge. They decide to use it first on Ben, imagining that an elevated heartbeat might unlock the door. However, his rate is not enough. Then, they test it on Mike, whose heartbeat is already extremely accelerated, but the result is still insufficient. Jason concludes that it will be necessary to use the defibrillator to raise his heartbeat even more. Initially, Mike refuses. Jason tries to convince him, reminding him that in a few moments everyone could die without breathable air, exactly as happened to Cal, and says that he must do it for his brother. After hesitating, Mike accepts. When he receives the electric shock, he falls onto the bed almost unconscious. Jason applies a second shock, taking him to the edge of death. His heartbeat exceeds 200 per minute, but the device continues, indicating failure. At that moment, time runs out, and the poisonous gas begins to be released throughout the room. While everyone panics, Jason remembers the message displayed on the television and concludes that they needed to reach their extremes. Then he connects the electrocardiogram to himself and forces his breathing until he drastically reduces his heartbeat. When it drops to 50 per minute, the device finally displays a message congratulating the group on their success. A passage opens, and Jason is the first to cross it. Ben calls for Zoe, saying that they found an exit. However, in a delirious state, she replies that that was the real exit and tells Ben to go ahead. Unable to convince her, Ben enters the passage, while Zoe and Mike remain in the room, apparently condemned to die poisoned. In the next room, Ben shows regret for not having forced Zoe to accompany him and accuses Jason of having killed Mike. Jason retorts by saying that Mike would die sooner or later. Revolted, Ben confronts him, saying that dealing with death seems natural to him. Then, he questions the story about the friend lost at sea, saying that it seems too convenient and suggesting that perhaps Jason was responsible for his companion's death. Ben pushes him against the wall and demands that he admit the truth. Jason, however, manages to overpower him easily and coldly states that survival is a choice. Then, he begins to search the room and finds a hatch. After managing to open it, both begin to suffer strong hallucinations, seeing everything spinning around them. Even so, they manage to read the inscription engraved on the hatch lid, informing them that they could leave immediately, but that it would be wiser to first find the antidote. At that moment, the floor begins to spin, intensifying the dizziness of the two. Even so, Ben decides to look for the antidote. When he bumps into one of the walls, a hidden drawer opens, revealing a syringe with a single dose of the medication. Even disoriented, Jason notices what happened and goes after Ben. The two enter into a violent fight for the injection. Jason twists Ben's knee, but Ben manages to react and makes his opponent hit his head on the edge of the wall. Taking the opportunity, he grabs the syringe and injects the antidote into his own leg. As soon as he regains consciousness, he crosses the hatch and falls from the ceiling exactly into the same room shown at the beginning of the film. He runs to the door, pulls a gear, and the walls begin to close around him. Meanwhile, the scene returns to the room where Zoe remained. Some people wearing chemical protection suits enter the place and, when they find an oxygen mask, comment, intrigued, about what she wanted to do with it. Suddenly, Zoe appears behind them and strikes them with an object, knocking both to the ground. She had used the mask to breathe and escape the poisonous gas, managing to survive. Then, she takes the gun from one of the men and enters through the passage they had come from. At the same time, Ben struggles to escape the room that continues closing in. Protecting himself with a shield inside the fireplace, he manages to resist until, unexpectedly, the walls begin to move away again. He crosses the final door and reaches a large room, where he finds his photograph accompanied by a message declaring him the winner. A voice states that he is an improbable winner, and that precisely because of that, those games are so fascinating. Soon after, a man appears, reveals himself to be the game master, and explains that he was responsible for creating all the rooms. According to him, since the dawn of humanity, people have been fascinated by watching other human beings fight for survival. Since the modern world has become relatively more peaceful, they created those games to satisfy extremely powerful clients, thirsty for increasingly brutal entertainment. This time, the goal was to discover whether luck could truly influence survival. Ben asks if, now that he has won, he can finally go home. In response, the game master passes a wire around his neck and lifts him through a suspended floor, trying to hang him. At that moment, Zoe appears from behind and shoots the man in the back. Wounded, he manages to hide behind some equipment, causing Zoe to lose track of him. By surprise, the game master attacks her, recovers the gun, and prepares to kill her. However, Ben wakes up in time, hits the man with a glass bottle, and then shoots him, ensuring his death. After that, Zoe helps Ben walk, and the two finally manage to escape that place. Sometime later, Ben is hospitalized, in a coma, while Zoe remains by his side. At that moment, a police officer arrives and asks her to accompany him. The two go to the Minos building, where several agents are investigating the place. Zoe is taken to the old waiting room and reports everything that happened. The officer, however, says that they found no evidence capable of confirming her story. She replies that Ben will be able to prove everything as soon as he wakes up. However, the officer informs her that tests revealed the presence of 3 illicit substances in his blood, casting doubt on her version and leaving her deeply outraged. 6 months later, Zoe and Ben meet again at an outdoor cafe. Ben says that he now works as a regional sales representative for dog food, and Zoe says she is happy for him. Then, she shows reports about the deaths of the former participants in the game. The report attributes the deaths to common accidents, such as heart attacks, motorcycle crashes, drowning, and falls from cliffs. Ben asks her to forget all of that and move on, but Zoe draws his attention to a detail in the company logo. According to her, the symbol hides coordinates that may indicate the whereabouts of those responsible for the game. Zoe reveals that she has already bought plane tickets and asks if Ben is willing to accompany her. Although he shows hesitation, he ends up accepting. In the final scene, a plane appears about to crash. A flight attendant, desperate, searches for clues inside the aircraft. Upon finding an object hidden among the luggage, she manages to unlock the cockpit door and finds the pilots unconscious. The plane is only moments away from collision when the scene reveals that everything was only a simulation. Then, an engineer informs a mysterious man that the probability of survival is only 4%. The man replies that he has already intercepted Zoe and Ben's flight information and says he is satisfied that Zoe has overcome her fear of flying. Then, he concludes that everything is prepared for a new game to begin.